that creativity is so good for your soul, and what happens, like the outcome, like I shouldn't sit down to write a book only if I think it could be a bestseller, and someone shouldn't paint a painting just because it's going to be in a gallery or whatever it is. Like, you do it for your soul and for yourself.
Welcome to a new edition of City on a Hill. I'm your host, Whitney Mendoza, and today I'm joined by author of Anonymous Mom Post, Jenifer Goldin. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
I think this is intriguing because we're like, ooh, Anonymous Mom Post.
Yes.
I want to know what moms say. I am not a mom yet, unless you, dog mom, totally different.
Dog mom counts.
Okay, does it? Probably those with kids. I've said that before, and those with kids were like, meh, not quite.
I don't know. The dog might be my favorite kid.
That's true. Yes, in that instance, true, fur babies. But I think I have a respect for how hard it is of a job to be a mom. Obviously, not the full spectrum of respect that will probably come to me when I do finally have children, but I think it's a really hard job. Like I even think about, certain situations we see, on schools and just things we're hearing about and things changing. Like I even think back to the pandemic, and I was thinking about like, what would I want to do if I was in high school during this time, and then the parent, trying to help their children. So it's a difficult job. Tell us a little bit about the book and why you wrote. This is your fourth book.
This is the fourth book I've written. It's going to be my first release.
Yeah.
I was actually in the middle of writing my second book when the idea for this book kept coming to mind.
Okay, yeah.
I am on several mom pages, and anytime I would see an anonymous post, I would really wonder, like, what happened? What led them to write the post? How did it resolve? And I kept just kind of thinking, like, what happened with these posts and these people?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is a book. So I put aside book 2 and started writing anonymous mom posts. And there is just so much material out there, just the way these Facebook groups operate. There was an avenue for humor in the book, but there was also an avenue for deep kind of emotional experiences in the book. So I had so much fun writing the book because I was able to blend kind of the humor and the snark of the mom groups with life's more serious issues.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what was so compelling that this actually made you put aside another project you were working on and prioritize this one?
I don't know. I'm a very deeply empathetic person. And when somebody's struggling, it's hard for me to let that go. So I would see posts and I would just be like, God, how is that mom doing? And how is she coping? And almost in a way, writing the book was a way for me to work through that fear that I had for the mom in my own way.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what, I read a couple of stories, but I'd love to hear if there was one that stood out to you.
Gosh, I love them all. They're all different, and they all are very meaningful to me for a different reasons. I don't know that I could say one in particular, and I think that all the characters like show tremendous growth from beginning to end. So I feel like they all really learned something, and I don't know that I can pick just one.
Yeah. Well, I read this story about Nora.
Yes.
Who is this young lady, and you're kind of reading through, but it was discovered at a young age that she was deaf, and so the parents are going through trying to decide basically the best avenue of treatment, through implants or sign language, and just trying to process the fact that their daughter can't hear. And the mom shared this story of the day that they found out. And that, as I was scrolling through, was one of the gut-wrenching stories that, again, I can't imagine you go through this process of, carrying this child for 9 months as a mother, and then, you just want everything to be perfect.
Right.
And so I know that must be heartbreaking, especially when something happens to your child and you just feel hopeless, really, or unable to help them.
So, my professional career is as a pediatric cochlear implant audiologist. Okay. So, obviously, I borrowed heavy from my personal experience in that field.
Yeah.
In that particular story. And that's a story that had been percolating in my mind for a long time, because I've worked with so many babies who got this gift of getting a cochlear implant. And then I would sometimes wonder what happens later in life, if they want to explore their deafness. And so it was a story I had played around a lot with in my mind, and I really enjoyed writing that one. I had sensitivity readers on both sides. So I had oral deaf implant users read and weigh in on what they thought rang true and what didn't. And then I had a deaf culture reader also comment, and she really, really had a lot to say. And it's interesting because I was in the field for so long. I even went to Gallaudet University for my master's, which is, to go there as an undergrad, you have to be deaf. So I felt fairly in touch with deaf culture. But working with the deaf sensitivity reader, she really, really helped me even come to some more realizations. And it's a tricky topic, oral deaf versus signing deaf. I really hope in my heart I did both sides justice. I tried very hard to kind of show there's great things about implants and there's great things about being part of deaf culture.
Yeah.
So
walk us through some of the other themes that are in this book.
There are themes about, I'll just try and go in order of how the characters appear. There's a husband and wife with differing political views. There is a wife, I don't want to give this one away, but she discovers something about her husband and is kind of wrestling with what that might mean. There is a mom whose older mother relocates to the city that this mom and her family live in, and she's trying to readjust to, all of a sudden, she hasn't lived near her mom since she left for college, and she's trying to readjust to having her mother back in her day-to-day life. And they're very different. The mom is very out loud and crazy, and this character is more introverted. So, and then I have a character who is grappling with some themes about what her cultural identity has taught her versus who she thinks she really is. And then also another character who she was raised in the South and she's Jewish, and she kind of always has felt like she needed to kind of fade into the background and not like live out loud with her Jewishness, and is kind of grappling with issues around that.
Yeah.
So
with this being your fourth book, I always love the process that writers go through. So what was your process?
I am 100% a seat of your pants writer.
Okay.
There are outliners and plotters, and there are seat of the pants. And I might have a general idea of like where I think it's going to go, but when I sit down to write, usually in like a 3 or 4 hour block, I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know where it's going to go, and it kind of has a life of its own that's fascinating to me, that part of it. And sometimes I'm just like super surprised how it ended up or how the storyline developed, but it really just comes as I'm sitting there. Where it comes from, I don't know. Yeah. Have you ever read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, this is like the best book. It's all about creativity and inspiration and just honoring what's inside you, and that creativity is so good for your soul. And what happens, like the outcome, like I shouldn't sit down to write a book only if I think it could be a bestseller, and someone shouldn't paint a painting just because it's going to be in a gallery or whatever it is. Like you do it for your soul and for yourself. And she really believes there's like just these like living ideas in you, and you either let them out or they're going to move on.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's why I love reading memoirs and self-stories, is so many of those do start out as often just like journal entries or someone else that has experienced those things along life with that person saying, you should write this down. And so often it is, right? It becomes successful because that wasn't the end in mind. It was just the true telling of the story.
Right.
I love that. You mentioned the daughter that's trying to get used to having her mom back into her life after college. And of course, I mean, the overall theme is certainly mom stories, but what is this term, momming?
Momming is my term that I have coined. It's momming in the modern age. It really encompasses all the thoughts, the feelings, the craziness, the tasks, the pressures of being a mom in today's world. So like getting a spreadsheet out because you can't figure out how to get kids A, B, and C to the different places they need to go.
Sure.
Stepping on a Lego and screaming your head off. Having goldfish and wine for dinner because you didn't make dinner for yourself. It's just all the absurdities of what it is to be a mom today.
Yeah. And that's interesting because we've had so many advancements that you kind of surface level would think it would be easier to be a mom, but we also have things like social media that we didn't have back in the day, right? What do you think is the number one challenge as a parent these days?
I think letting go of perfectionism. Everything on social media makes it seem so perfect. Like we've all seen the videos of the moms and making these perfect lunches in the bento boxes that are like pieces of art. 99.99% of us like can't do that. And I think if today's moms can kind of just let go of that expectation of perfectionism, that's a good start. And also, I mean, I love self-help, and one of my favorite people is Brene Brown. I've read everything about her, and she just has so much wisdom to share about letting go of perfectionism and not pretending to your child that you're this perfect person and you never make mistakes. Like letting your kids see your failures, I think is really important, and helps in parenting and helps you not be a perfectionist. Like I'll do things and I'll do them wrong or something will happen, and I'll say to my kids, like, look, I messed that up. Like I can't do everything right, and you can't do everything right, and no one can do everything right. So
yeah,
I think some concepts like that can be helpful.
And I think that brings up a little bit of tie-in that we were talking about before the show of it's okay to ask for help, especially in those areas that we're not particularly good at, or maybe we are good at it, but it just isn't that thing that we should be doing. How have you done that with this book? So if you're the writer, kind of how are you leaning on others to do some of the other heavy lifting?
Well, my husband's been amazing. He gives me the time and space to write.
Yeah. Which is so important.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those things that goes overlooked. Again, I even think, back to the pandemic and when we were all working from home, it was almost like taking shifts, right? Like one parent had the morning shift and one parent had the afternoon and evening shift because work had to be done, but so did school and the kids were home. And so, yeah, that's an important point.
So yeah, for sure, leaning on him, and then I'm so lucky, and I have such a wonderful, supportive network of friends. So
Yeah.
they'll read anything I write. They'll give me honest feedback. They cheer for me. They want me to succeed. They if I'm in a pinch, will give my kid a ride home. You know, whatever it is. I really have. I'm so lucky. I have such a very strong support network, and lots of people that I can lean on. And you know, there's been a lot of boo-hooing through this process of close calls and agents, and even a production company that was looking at making it into a TV series, and all these all these things. And I've leaned on my friends and family to kind of get me through the ups and downs.
Yeah. When you're self-published,
Yes.
What is that process? Kind of going through each of those steps.
So I had just mentioned the production company that was super interested in my book, and ultimately they passed. And what the executive there said to me was, "We are in the business of making screenplays into movies and shows. We're not in the business of making books into screenplays. You know, it's like an extra step." And he's like, "But what you have done here is so great, and it's so marketable." And he said, you know, and at this time I was like working with agents. I was working with one agent in particular at like the biggest agency in the world for like a year, and kept getting closer and closer, and ultimately it was a pass. But he said, "What is success to you?" And I said, "Honestly, if like 50 people a year read it and they like it, that's success for me." And he was like, "Forget the gatekeepers, Jenifer." He said, "You can totally self-publish this. I'm going to send you links. I'm going to introduce you to some self-published author pages so you can kind of see and learn that you can cultivate your own following and do what you love, and self-publish." So he really was the inspiration for me opening that part of my brain where I was like, okay, I don't need a gatekeeper's approval. And even with the rejection and even with the passes, I don't know, I'm not an overly confident person, but there was just something in my gut that was like, I know this is something a lot of people can relate to, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
So he sent me a bunch of information. I kind of started learning more about it. I signed up for some self-publishing courses online, and I've been kind of just taking it one step at a time. It's a very overwhelming process, but just one step at a time. And now here I am, like at the very, very end, and about to release it.
Yeah. So it officially comes out April 1st.
Yes.
What do you hope moms take away from this when they read it?
I hope moms, you know, obviously, like we were saying, like there's this perfectionist bar we're trying to live up to, and we need to let that go. But also, I think a lot of what the book talks about is like what's at the heart of genuine connection, you know? Is it these comments we're making back and forth to each other on social media, or is it taking the time to interact with people face to face and really be with them where they are and look in their eyes and have a back and forth conversation? So there's a lot of pluses about social media. I'm not denying that, but I think I'd love people to look inward and just really think about what really constitutes a genuine feeling of connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say to a struggling mom out there today?
Been in that position so many times. It's like a wave. I was just actually having a conversation with my friend about this, and she was kind of in a down. Everything was hard. The son and the daughter, and you know, butting heads with her husband, and it was just one of those like really low moments. And it comes back up. It's almost just like hold on, you know, unless it's something like really serious and terrible that you need to get out. Sure. But like it's a matter of just like holding on for dear life and knowing the upswing is coming. But it's hard when you're in it. It's hard when you're in it.
I think that's key advice in general. On the other side of the valley is another mountain peak.
Yeah.
It just takes a little bit of climbing.
Yeah, really.
Especially when you're at the very bottom looking up and you're like, wow, that hill is so tall. But yeah, I love that. What's next for you?
So my next book is done.
Ooh, okay.
And there's a teaser for it at the end of Anonymous Mom Posts.
Nice.
And it's called Moms Who Read Romance Novels.
Nice.
So it's in the same pocket for the same audience. And I was, in learning about self-publishing, what I learned was you should either keep writing the same characters, like in a series, or you should write in a really particular niche. And mine is, mom culture. And so I was out to dinner one night with my husband and my son, and we were like brainstorming all these mom titles. Mom's this, mom's that, mom's that. And my 10-year-old son was like, what about romance novels? And I was like, yes, because romance novels are like everything right now. And I was like, Moms Who Read Romance Novels. That is it. And literally, I sat down with that title. It all just came. And it just,
wow.
whoop, it just like, it was such an amazing jumping off point. And I parody some stuff from romance novels.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mix of, it's a romance novel within a women's fiction novel. And I didn't think I could love it as much as I love Anonymous Mom Post, but I totally do.
That's awesome.
So.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Thank you.
So for our listeners, if you're listening prior to April 1st, pre-orders are open.
You can pre-order the ebook on Amazon right now. The ebook and paperback will be fully released April 1st, so you can get a hard copy. I know a lot of people have been asking me, waiting to get their hands on the paperback. You can visit my website, which is author Jenifer Goldin. It's Jenifer Goldin. Had to make it really complicated with the spelling. You can sign up for my newsletter there and stay up to date on all my book release information. And then I'm on social media. Jenifer Goldin Writes on Instagram. Jenifer Goldin Writes on TikTok. And I think it's author Jenifer Goldin on Facebook. Yes. On Facebook is author Jenifer Goldin.
Perfect.
So
awesome.
That's how you can find me.
Perfect. And the official launch date is April 1st.
April 1st.
Before I let you go, my last question that I always ask guests is, what does it mean to you to be a city on a hill? Like, what is that core differentiator that you feel like sets you apart, but also makes you who you are?
I think for me, I had some experiences when I was growing up that made me I'm an extremely empathetic person. I mean, almost to the point where it's detrimental to me. Mm-hmm. Like, if I hear something on the news that's tragic, like, I can't let it go. It takes weeks and weeks. So I think that's kind of why I write the way I write, because I feel so deeply. I'm so good, I think, at getting into other people's shoes and trying to understand what the experience is that they're having, which I think is everything when it comes to my writing, because I am so empathetic and think so deeply about the other person's experience. So although it's a hard way to be, I'm sensitive and it can make me emotional, but in the same breath, it's where my writing comes from.
Yeah, I love that.
Thanks.
Jenifer Goldin, author of Anonymous Moms Post, available April 1st. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Me. Thank you.
And to all of our listeners, mark your calendars, April 1st, go pick up this book, and we'll see you on the next episode of City on a Hill.